everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so honored and trying very, very hard to keep my fangirl self in line because the fabulous, the talented, the absolutely amazing Colleen Cambridge, aka Colleen Gleason, is sitting right across from me.
And very happy to be here, thank you.
She is the inspiration for the sweatshirt today. The crush on Agatha Christie is real, and clearly you also love Agatha.
I love Agatha, yeah.
And you are the moderator of my favorite panel at Malice 2022. You win. You have the Agatha Christie panel, and I thought I would do your questions to you as the moderator because you did not answer them during the panel.
I did not.
And I want to know your answers.
Okay, I'm on it.
Agatha Christie, someone who wrote an adaptation or inspiration.
It's not really.
It's a hybrid.
It's an homage. It's actually an homage to Agatha Christie. It's Phillida Bright is Agatha Christie's housekeeper, and she comes downstairs one morning during a house party at Agatha Christie's fictional estate, Malin Hall, and finds a dead body in the library. A dead body in Agatha Christie's library. I mean, you know.
How did you come up with that, too? I mean, again, I'm fangirling over this book because you hit, I think, all of the cozy markers. I mean, obviously, cozy mystery readers, we live in the Agatha Christie realm. She is the queen of cozy mysteries. I think she created this subgenre. You know, we bow down to her presence. And then you have all of the Agatha references, but then you hit the cozy markers that we're looking for as modern readers. I'm just so impressed by how you crafted that book.
It was a joy to write, and I was just telling you a minute off screen that I wrote it, the bulk of it, during the worst part of COVID, the beginning of COVID. So I was writing this book during like January, February, March, April, May-ish, all of that time of 2020, when it was very scary. We didn't know what was going to happen. Everybody was locked down, and a lot of people were saying, oh, it's a great time for writers. We have all this time to write. We don't have to go anywhere or do anything. Ha! Nobody really, we were just so distracted and worried that it really wasn't all that easy to write, but it was a joy to write. It was an escape to write. And interestingly enough, Agatha disappeared for 11 days, and she had a really difficult divorce from her husband Archie, her first husband Archie. And she talks about how she had to write a couple books during that really difficult time, and they were not her best books. I'm fortunate in that this was a very difficult time, but I feel like this is one of my favorite books that I've ever written, so I'm very fortunate. But I also felt like I was channeling Agatha a little bit in the sense that I understood her sense of, I always want to have an extra book on hand in case I ever go through a rough time like this again and can't write.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, the idea was not mine to begin with. The idea of Agatha Christie's housekeeper solving mysteries was not actually my idea. It was an idea that my editor gave to me.
Well, I love your editor. Thank you, editor.
I know, right? And it was a very simple idea. It was Agatha Christie's housekeeper solving mysteries. And that's all she said. And so I was able to do whatever I wanted to do with it, which was, kind of how it came out. So I loved having the kernel of the idea, but also having the freedom to do whatever worked. And Phillida Bright just became this entity in my head, and she, the very first sentence of the whole book is she finds a body in the library with a fountain pen in his neck, and she's pretty sure the guy's dead.
And I mentioned off camera that I'm working with a book coach, and one of the homework assignments she gave me was, what are your favorite opening lines for cozy mysteries? And I came back with my 5 favorites, and guess who was on the list?
Thank you.
That is quite an opening because you know what you're reading, and then you're going, I need more information. I was very impressed by the writerly way that you captivated me as the reader.
And hopefully you got a little bit of the character, because I think the line, I don't actually remember the line, but it's something like, when she saw the dead body on the floor, Phillida didn't scream. Which tells you a little bit about the character, too. She walks into the library, there's a dead body there. Most people would probably scream, but Phillida doesn't, and we find out why as the story goes on. She's just, I actually really love Phillida. I'd like to be Phillida when I grow up. Let me just put it that way.
I love that you love your character so much.
She's fabulous.
She really is.
I love her. I want to be her when I grow up, literally. She doesn't take any crap from anybody. She's very confident. This is set in the 30s, and she's a housekeeper, but she is very self-assured. She knows her worth. She can pick locks. We don't know why she can pick locks. We got to find that out someday. I don't know when.
I feel as if at Malice, people have been talking about lock picking, and I'm going, this is something I need to look into more.
Oh, there's that new series out. No, that's a Safe Opener, Ashley Weaver's new series.
Yeah, I need to look into these things. People are talking about how to go about the sleuth thing, and I'm going, I need to get a lockpicking kit and just figure this out.
I think I should do that for research. Oh, you were saying that your book coach told you to go watch TV as research, and I was fortunate enough to be able to just go sit and read a whole bunch of Agatha Christie books, and whenever I feel like I want to read an Agatha Christie book, I just call it research. It's great.
I think that is the best research. I mean, I love the questions that you asked on the panel. First of all, these questions you came up with yourself.
These are the lightning round questions?
These are the questions that you asked some of the panelists. I was jotting them down.
The nice thing about being the moderator is you don't have to answer the questions. You can ask the hardest questions you want. That's okay. I'll do my best.
I feel like that's the professor standing at the lecture hall and being like, students, answer the question that I posed to you.
Right, and I'm not going to answer. Yeah, go ahead. I'll see if I can do it.
Oh, no. I mean, I was just curious, when did you start reading Agatha Christie? Because that was one of the questions you asked. And I'm going, that's actually a really interesting one because these are murders and these are older books, so what drew you to Agatha?
Like middle school. I mean, I'm sure, I don't remember exactly when, but I still have all of my Agatha Christie's that I read, and it must have been like 12, 13, 14 in that age range. Unlike Lori, I have read Nancy Drew, but I did the same thing. I would go to the library and I would get stacks of books and take them home and I'd read them. The Boxcar Children, Trixie Belle and Botsy, I mean, all of those. And then I would start running out of books, and then I started reading Agatha Christie. And since they're cozies, you know, and the violence is off page, they weren't, you know, terribly traumatic. I mean, I think Harry Potter's more traumatic than you know, the Christies that I read at that age.
That's very true. When you gave that comparison, like, Voldemort is trying to kill him the entire series, isn't he?
I mean, then there's violence on the page in Potter. There's not violence on the page in Christie. We always just stumble upon the bodies. So.
That's very true. I like this juxtaposition. That's worth studying. One of my questions was because you asked this, and I read your book. The body dropping occurs very early in your book, but with Agatha, it is later.
Yeah, in many of her books, it is later. It's much later that the detectives come on. So this was the first book in the series, and so when I read a book, my personal preference is generally I like to see the body and the main character pretty quickly on. It's not to say I don't like books where it doesn't happen right away, but I personally like to do it. And particularly because this was the first book in the series, I just wanted to get the whole thing out there right away. I wanted to introduce the protagonist right away, and I wanted the body there immediately. Plus, it is an homage to Agatha Christie, so the body in the library thing right away, I mean, it just kind of lets you know this is going to be, I don't know if the word is a romp. It's not really a romp, but it's definitely really Christie-esque. You know, country manor house, you know, limited people, dead body in the library. What makes this one different is that it's told from the point of view of one of the servants, which we don't really see in Christie.
No, I loved that adaptation, that variation on it, and I think you hit on one of my favorite parts with Christie is that you start with people in that isolated location. It reminds you of the cabin in the woods. 5 people enter, only X amount will leave. Right. And that's what's so intriguing. You're going, I love you people in cozy mysteries, but I would never want to live in the same town as you, go on vacation with you, but you still want to read about them.
Right. Oh yeah, totally.
I love the question that you had about the adaptations of Christie, because there seems to be this almost revival of Agatha Christie in film and TV in the last 5 years.
Yes, all of a sudden there's all these new adaptations. I don't know why, because you cannot improve on David Suchet as Poirot. So I'm sort of annoyed that Kenneth Branagh and John Malkovich think that they could somehow improve on David Suchet, who is Poirot, will always be Poirot. You know, he's the consummate Poirot. Why mess with a good thing?
She made me laugh, and I was wearing my mask, so I could smother. I could hide behind the mask in the audience, because you have very, very strong feelings about a particular Kenneth Branagh moment. And
yes, I do. And Death on the Nile, I'm still upset about that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to watch Death on the Nile. What was he thinking?
That's what he's iconic for. That is your trademark.
Right, and I'm trying not to say what it is to ruin it for anybody, but it is true in the very first scene. Poirot with no mustache. Kelleror, I mean, how can that be?
He does a lot of Shakespearean adaptations, and I'm almost like, Kenneth, go back to your area.
This is not,
I'm like, I know you like adaptations, but go where your roots lie.
I mean, the best part of that Death on the Nile adaptation was Gal Gadot, and I cannot remember the actress's name who played the jilted, lover or whatever.
I will include the link or edit in the photo here. I will Google this.
Okay, yeah, good.
One of the benefits of editing, I mean, the cast was brilliant, and I really did like Murder on the Orient Express as well. I will give him credit for that one. It was the latest with the lack of mustache where you're going, oh.
I was like, no, we didn't need all this backstory. We don't need a lot more backstory of Poirot than we had in the books, because it's really not about his backstory. It's about his psychology and how he solves the murders. And I love David Suchet.
You're going, I have my guy.
Right.
He is it.
Yep.
No more. We're
Right.
good.
Exactly.
I can just keep rewatching him, and I'm happy. I'm kind of curious now myself, because this is one of your lightning round questions. Who is your favorite Agatha Christie character?
Poirot.
You didn't miss a beat.
because there's no question. I love Poirot. And you know what? I hate to admit this. I was shocked at how many people on the panel picked Marple over Poirot.
I was surprised too.
I was so shocked because I don't really like Miss Marple that much. I do think Joan Hickson was a better Marple, and if you look at adaptations, I just find the Miss Marple books a little more boring than the Poirot books. I'm sorry, it's true. But I remember reading Poirot when I was young and like really enjoying him, and so I think it's from a young age I've always had a thing for Poirot. And Philip has a thing for Poirot.
He touched your heart early on. Yeah. It's one of those, you've had the best, so you're not
right,
going to settle for any less.
and just, Marple's fine, but I was shocked. What was it, like 4 out of the 5 panels picked Marple? I was shocked.
I have to admit, so we did read Murder at the Vicarage, the first Miss Marple, for the Cozy Mystery Book Club, and I myself was not a huge fan of that book, which surprised me because I really like Agatha Christie, and I've read, and everyone on the panel was talking about And Then There Were None. Well, the first time I read that book, I think my brain just exploded because I was going, this is brilliant, this is incredible.
I know.
And then, you're reading Miss Marple, and it feels very slow paced.
Yes.
And you don't know a lot about her, so you're like, do I like you? Am I rooting for you?
Well, and she's not super likable in her first... Well, she was in a bunch of short stories before Murder at the Vicarage. And, she kind of came across as really snarky, although that wouldn't be a word that Agatha would have used, but really snarky and almost kind of bitchy. In those short stories, and I've read most of them, not all of them. And then, Vicarage, she comes on, but I thought it was a little slow paced for me, just my personal preference. I don't dislike them, but I don't gravitate to a Marple book as I gravitate to a Poirot book.
Oh no, it's one of those, I feel as if this is the whole thing when you're a reader and you're a kind reader who understands things. You're going, this is I understand the literary merits, I appreciate other people read this, but this is not the highest one on my to-be read list or my reread list. It's fine, and then you just pick up the next Agatha Christie and move on with your life.
Yes. And then there's all the ones that people don't know, or don't think of, as like The Mysterious Mr. Quinn and Mr. Parker Pine Detective, and some of those short stories that I like those for just quick reads, and I like them because they're short and they're brilliant, and I can't write short stories.
Really?
I don't.
I think you're brilliant, so I think you can do anything you want. I mean, if you wanted to invent something, you'd be like, yeah, Shark Tank, invest in her. I don't even know what the invention is, but here you go.
I always want to put too much into it, and I'm always just very in awe of people who can write short and put what you in your characters and stuff. But I think Mr. Quinn is wonderful. I don't know if you've read Mysterious Mr. Quinn.
I made a note of that because you mentioned, or one of your questions was, favorite underappreciated Christie character, and you said Harley Quinn, and then someone else, I think you then mentioned it too, Mr. Parker Pine, and I'm going, why wasn't anyone else talking about these characters?
Yeah. Well, they're underappreciated. That's why I put that. I was waiting for people to pull out some of those, or somebody mentioned Superintendent Battle too. I like him as well. Nobody really likes Tuppence and Tommy, which I think is funny. When I was in middle school, my good friend also read Agatha Christie, and we used to talk about them all the time. And she loved Tuppence and Tommy. They were her favorites.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know. Yeah.
I like that you had a best friend who also was reading Christie.
Oh, we traded books and everything, and we talked about them all the time.
That is the best friendship. Yeah. That is friendship goals.
Yep, indeed. Oh, yeah, when you have a friend who reads the same books you do. Yeah.
That is reader heaven, where you're going, okay, so I can spend some money, and you can spend some money, and now we have the complete collection between us.
Right.
I loved one of your questions, too, about the outsider sleuth, and then you've got my own little wheels going, and I'm thinking, yeah, they are outsiders looking in. So I was kind of curious what inspired this question, or what you think about the outsider sleuth.
Well, I think the outsider sleuth, when they come on the scene, they're able to look at it without being immersed, so they can look at it, from a different perspective. And in my fill of books, there's actually 2, because the second one's coming in the fall. She's a little bit of an outsider because she's the housekeeper of the estate, So she's an insider when it comes to running the household and managing the staff, but she's an outsider to the guests and the people who are staying there.
Yeah.
And so she can look at them from a different perspective. I think that serves the sleuths well, because they can come in and they can see things that people who are immersed can't.
I have to admit, I love the fact that she is very direct, and I think there is something to the female sleuther in the cozy mysteries. That seems to be, aside from our certain favorite man over there, they are a lot of female sleuthers.
Well, and you have to, I mean, we also know that cozy mysteries are well read by females, or people who identify as, well, or feminine people, I guess I should say. I don't know how to describe it, but generally, in general, targeted toward and read by women, which makes sense that the sleuths are, tend to be more female. Now, I don't know if you know this, I wrote three books in a series for Kensington, the Lincoln's White House Mysteries, as C.M. Gleason.
That one I did.
So the main character is a man, but the side character, we've got a side character who's a woman, and then we've got a black medical doctor. So I have a really nicely diverse cast, I think, in that series, but the lead protagonist is a male, which I think is a little bit different.
To me, too, it's funny because I always mention Monk and Psych. And
I love Monk! Oh, I love Monk! And Sherlock,
exactly.
But Monk, he's one of my favorites.
Oh my gosh.
Talk about rewatching, like, comfort watches, Monk.
It's so funny, too. My parents have been rewatching Monk on Hallmark Channel, and I have seen the episodes so many times, they'll reference a single line of dialogue. I'm like, oh, that's the one that happens with X. And my dad is blown away every time because he's going, you're scary with Monk. You know those so well.
Well, I'm thinking David Suchet and Tony Shalhoub, I mean, they're like right up there together.
I love Monk so much.
No, you know what? We shouldn't even think about that because they're going to do a remake of Monk and it's going to suck.
They can't.
They
cannot
better
remake it.
I mean, it's like, yeah.
All he has to do is say Trudy's name and I start tearing up.
I know. I love Monk.
He revived Monk for COVID for a 5-minute little YouTube video and how he's
I vaguely remember that. That's right.
I was so happy. I'm going, just do a little snippet and then leave it at that and then move on.
And he's okay in Mrs. Maisel, but he is always Monk too.
As someone who has rewatched Monk so many times, favorite character episode?
Oh boy. I really like the Naked Man.
I love that.
Is that what I said?
Yes, the one where he's at the nudist beach.
Yes, and I also I mean, there's so many good lines in that one, and I really love hold on, because I've rewatched it a bunch of times too. The one at the farm when he hits it. Well, the two different ones at Randy's farm, and then when he hits his head, and he's with Lori.
Yes. He's
the actress who was on Roseanne and who
I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
that one when he hits his head, he's at the farm. I like that one too.
I love that one. I love how he remembers Trudy, and when they finally come back and they find him, he goes, well, I know about Trudy, but who am I? And so the way he's remembering who he is and trying to solve the mysteries, even though he's doing roofs.
So now, who did you like better, Sharona or Natalie?
It's so funny because upon rewatching, I actually became a big Natalie person, but originally I was Sharona because she
was the first one. She was the original. Yeah. And I liked that they were two very different characters.
Yes.
That they approached everything, very differently, and I think they had to do that, and I liked them both. I really liked them both. I like them both for different things, but I think I'm slightly more of a Natalie fan, just slightly.
Yeah, I think that's completely true for me because I love the fact that they both are so supportive of him and they both go to bat for him, and I love the way he speaks with them and the way they try and help him, and I just love the dynamic.
I love that Sharona calls him Adrian.
Yes.
And how Natalie is very formal and calls him Mr. Monk. Like the whole time, it's I love it.
She always dresses business professional too, where Sharona's always trying to be very fashionable.
Or very New Jersey fashionable.
Yes, and her fashionable for Sharona.
1990s New Jersey fashionable, right?
It was funny. I think my mom said she reminded her of, oh my gosh, why am I blanking? Julia Roberts, Academy Award winning Erin Brockovich.
Yeah.
She says she has the same dress style.
Completely, yes.
That's my mother's reference.
Yeah,
I cannot take credit. Yeah. Mama Hart gets credit for that one.
Very good.
I love that you love Monk though. I'm like, I have something
he's the best.
Now you're making me want to go rewatch it.
I know. It's a comfort watch.
We have the overarching mystery for Monk of who killed Trudy, and is that something that you like in your cozy mystery novels as well? Because that was something that definitely drove him, because that was his motivation until the very end, and even up until then. I love at the very end you realize, oh, this is what Trudy would want me to do, so I shall keep going. But I think that's something with cozy mysteries too, the overarching question.
I think that helps keep the readers wanting to read.
Yeah.
So in a cozy mystery series, it's hard to have an overarching mystery because they want resolution at the end of the book. So you always have to have something resolved, but the mystery could be something like, what's Phylida's past?
Yeah.
Why does she know how to pick a lock?
I'd
And
like to-
how old is she? And has she been, all the questions that Dobble wants to know the answers to, Dobble being the butler, with whom she has an interesting relationship, a cantankerous relationship, kind of. But I think that it's, you do have these overarching some things, whether it's a mystery about the character, their development, and their backstory, but also their own relationships. And then as the series develops, other characters might have relationships that you're going to watch develop. So the whole idea, for me, at least as a reader, as a TV watcher, and as a writer, is I want there to be a reason that even when that book ends, that readers want to go on to the next book to find out more about these people that they've come to know.
Such a brilliant answer. We know your favorite Christie adaptation, but I'm curious if you have a second favorite Agatha Christie adaptation.
Well, so I would say Peril at End House with David Suchet is one of my favorites. I also really liked, all right, I'm trying to remember, Murder on the Orient Express. Why didn't they come out?
The original or the new one?
The one with Suchet.
Okay.
I mean, I'm never gonna pick a Kenneth Branagh as a favorite ever adaptation. I can't. No, it's gonna be a Suchet. I mean, I just can't imagine anybody doing a better job. So yeah, so the Murder on the Orient Express. What's the other one I really like? There's always another one that I watch.
Oh, there's
What's the one
so
on
many Agathas.
There's another one on the, Death on the Nile. I like the Suchet Death on the Nile too. I don't know.
I think we can just assume.
I keep rewatching them all. Yeah, I mean there aren't. Oh, you know what? Actually, probably my absolute favorite Poirot or Christie adaptation is the very first Suchet, which is The Mystery of the Clapham Cook.
Oh, I think I watched that.
It's a short one. It's only an hour, and it's just so Poirot. He's just so Poirot. I don't know if you ever. I read Suchet's memoir about being Poirot. Did you ever read that?
No, I haven't. I have that. I want to read it though.
So it's great. But he talks about how he learned to walk like Poirot by pretending he had a quarter stuck between his butt cheeks. And when he's holding a quarter between his butt cheeks. And I don't know if I can't remember if he said he actually did it or if he just did it. That's how he practiced that. So that's how we got the Poirot walk. And that first, he was doing that before Clapham Cook. So that was the very first episode that he ever did as Poirot. And it's very fun in so many ways. There's such dry humor in it. So
I did have a couple other questions that were very writerly. How do you select the names of your characters? Because you have so many characters too. I'm curious how you keep coming up with the new ones and how you keep them straight in your head, because you have a lot of brain babies running around.
Yeah. Main characters, they just show up in my head. They just show up. Phyllis Bright just showed up, although she was Esther Bright for a day in my head, and then I was watching a Poirot David's at night because I was getting in the mood, and one of the minor characters was named Phyllis. And I was like, oh my God, that's a great British name. And so I was like, she's Phyllis Bright, that's who it's going to be. And then I found out later that Emma Thompson's mother's name is Phyllis. So it just worked for me on many levels. So most of the characters, like Dobble, he was Dobble from the very moment I started to write about the butler. I totally do not plot my books.
Interesting.
I write as if I'm reading them for the first time. So I don't really know what's going to happen, I just write. So if they're a side character, like if it's going to be someone who's like a suspect or like a character who's just in the book because they're one of the potential suspects, I usually do have to think about their names so that the name helps identify who they are character-wise. Like in Malin Hall, we had the Divines, and they were the very attractive couple, so their name was Divine to help remember. So those names are harder for me because I'm trying to think of names that fit and that are distinct and maybe are unique, but I don't have to live with them for more than a book. So those are harder for me. But the main characters, their names just appear in my head. I don't know, they just show up.
I am very surprised that you say you don't plot, because to me your mystery seems so well thought out of, we're going to include this little red herring here, we're going to have this clue in here, and the way you're shaking your head, I think
you want to know why there are red herrings? Because when I'm writing, because I literally have no idea what's going to happen, I just let clues fall in. I just write like I'm writing along, and there's a footprint here, okay. There's a scrap of paper here, and then later I'm like, I don't really need that footprint. I could take the footprint out, or I could just leave it as a red herring. Like, I don't know whodunit,
Interesting.
and I don't know why. And so I usually sprinkle clues in that I may or may not leave in or need or use, and then I take them out or leave them in. Like the book I just finished and just turned in, which is not a Philida book, which is a new series that's coming out a year from now, and I wish I could tell you about it, but I can't quite yet. Super fun, super fun.
Is it a cozy?
Yeah. I had this map show up. I had this, my sleuth sneaks into somebody's apartment and finds this map with all these things marked on it, and I was like, ooh, this is cool. And I never ended up using it. Like, I ended up taking the map out because I couldn't figure out a reason that it made sense for it. It's just weird. So when I'm writing, I don't really know what's going to happen. And
of course, now I'm glad that I have an alert set up for you because I'm going as soon as this drops.
well, you just should sign up for my newsletter.
I think I'm on your newsletter list.
Are you?
I'm
I'll
pretty
get
sure.
your email to make sure before I go.
If
And
I'm
if
not-
anybody out there wants to join my newsletter, ColleenGleason.com. All my books are there. You can sign up for my newsletter there.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure,
Okay.
I'm like 99% sure, but sometimes I will admit things end up in the junk
Oh,
folder
they
that
do,
should not
yeah.
be in the junk
Yeah,
folder,
yeah.
and then I get very upset because I missed out
Well,
on
I'll just make sure
things.
you're on it because I don't want you to miss this one. It's kind of fun. I think it's pretty fun. And I can't say anything yet, and I wish I could because the cover's amazing.
You have beautiful covers too.
This is a really cool. Did you see the cover for the new book coming in the fall, the pale lavender one?
Yes, I did. Again, that's why I say you have beautiful book covers. I
You're
will
welcome.
link the cover because I am always very impressed because this is Kensington, correct?
Yes.
Is
They
the-
got a new art director a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, they always had beautiful covers,
Yeah.
but I feel like the art director has maybe brought just a new perspective, or maybe it's just these particular books. They just warrant these covers, but I thought Malin Hall's cover was amazing, and I really attribute, the book's done pretty well, and I attributed that to people wanting to know what is this beautiful blue book.
Oh, the amount of Bookstagram photos I have taken and still need to post of that book cover is hysterical.
Good.
That book has stayed with me in my backpack for when I went around DC, so I'm like, oh, here's a beautiful latte with the latest book. I was like, oh, here is a beautiful flower that I just came across, and so it just kept popping
It's
up
a
everywhere in
great cover.
DC.
I was just over the moon when I saw it because I've had covers that have not been great in other situations, and we've sometimes been able to get them changed and sometimes haven't. Haven't had to ask for any changes with the Philida books and this new series that I'm doing that I can't tell you about yet.
So I am curious what advice you have for aspiring cozy mystery writers because you have been very successful. You've done so well. You have a certain little ribbon with your name tag, the Agatha nominee, whom I'm crossing my fingers for and
thank you.
submitting a
That's
certain
very
ballot
sweet.
for.
Thank you, that's very sweet.
I am so impressed by what you create. And again, I never would have thought in a million years you were not a plotter because you have such well done mysteries. So how do you do this, and what advice do you have for people who want to follow in your glorious footsteps?
Well, I mean, the big thing I would say is there's no one way to write a book. And, there's not, you have to plot, you don't have to plot. You have to find what works for you when you're writing. And maybe that means trying different options. Maybe that means doing an outline and then letting yourself go off the outline. Maybe it means doing writing sprints. I know people who are really successful doing writing sprints, which for people who aren't familiar with it, you just turn off all your internet, set the timer, 45 minutes, half hour, an hour, and write without stopping, without editing, without rereading, just write. And for some people that opens the floodgates. So I guess my advice is don't look for someone else's way of writing. Find your own way and try different things. But try different things.
Yeah.
Try the sprinting, try the plotting, try the outlining, which to me is different than plotting. I mean, when I write a mystery, I know there's going to be a dead body. I know we're going to find out who done it. And and then along the way we're going to have some clues and red herrings. Other than that, I don't really know.
So do you go for the writing sprints, or do you try and do, okay, today I'm going to hit 1,500 words, or I'm going to hit 5 pages? How do you...
Both. So I basically have when I'm on deadline, I have a daily word count that I know that if I hit this daily word count, I'm going to make my deadline without turning gray. And I am actually very gray. I pay for my hair. Not to
Your
look
hair is
gray.
beautiful.
I have my.
She
I don't
has
think
a
you can tell
clip
in
in
the
there.
video.
I don't know if you can see it. It's very fashionable.
Well, it's like in the color. You can't really tell maybe, but it's like an eggplant color. My hairstylist is brilliant. But anyway, my point is, I would be even more gray, and I mean, it probably wouldn't even be able to be colored and covered if I didn't do what I do. So I go for a certain number of words a day, and I give myself plenty of time, and I know if I hit my word count every day, then I'm going to finish this book on time easily. Now, I also know that I write faster when I get near the end, And I often will do writing sprints to hit my daily word count. And my daily word count, the number that I like to be is 2,000 words a day.
Okay. So
I like that number. That's easy for me. Well, I don't say easy. It's really doable for me. 2,500 is even 2,500 is doable. But I don't like to have a word count go higher than that. Like I like it to be around 2,000. Then I'm not overworking, and then I have time to enjoy life, and I'm not stressed, and I have time to do the other stuff I'm supposed to do, like my newsletter, which I never do, and social media, and research and read and so on, because I'm always researching even when I'm working on the book. I usually continually check things and research, and I'm always reading an Agatha Christie book because that's research.
I am curious if there is something that Cozy Mystery readers don't know about you that you would like to tell them, if there's something about your writing style or who you are as a writer, if there's something you're going, this is an interesting fact about me.
Well, I don't know if people would think this is interesting, but I have a treadmill desk that I do a good portion of my writing at. So I usually walk about 2 miles an hour, and I try and walk, I try to not be on the treadmill more than 2 hours a day because it's bad for my hips, whatever, I'm getting old. So I have a treadmill desk that I do most of my writing at. The other thing is I've written in many, many genres. I have written over 40 books as Colleen Gleason and as Colleen Cambridge and C.M. Gleason. And I've written mysteries, but I've also written historical romance. I've written vampire novels.
You have 40 books to your name.
Yeah.
That is so impressive.
I'm very lucky to be able to do this for a living. I wrote 9 books before I sold my first novel.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was my 9th book that sold, which is my...
So how do you stay motivated to write? I mean, I would be very suspicious of myself, or I would lose confidence in myself, I think is a better way of phrasing it, after book 1 or 2. I mean, how do you keep going to write book 8 and then book 9, and then all of a sudden, I think you're a very prominent big name, and I'm going, I get to interview, and I get all fangirly at you. So to me, you are a success story, but how did you keep the perseverance and motivation to get to this point where you are the success story? Because I think I would have given up by book, 3, 4. So how did you get to book 8 and 9?
I think just sheer stubbornness, because I have so many stories in my head that I can't not work on them. And the other thing too is a lot of the series that I wrote, I knew from the beginning that they would be a limited series. Like Phillida, I will write Phillida as long as I can. I don't see an end to that series, as opposed to when you think about J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter, 7 books. She knew it was going to be 7 books because that was that story. I knew there were going to be 5 books on the Gardella Vampire Hunters, so I had to finish that arc, but I knew it wasn't going to go on forever. 5 books in the Stoker and Holmes series. I knew it was going to be a 5-book series. So the motivation is I got to finish telling the story of this character. Where when you're writing a Cozy Mystery series, it can go on forever, or it can stop after 3 books if they don't sell well enough. You don't know. So my motivation, though, comes from people like you who are really want to read more, really enjoy the books. These are really hitting my buttons, please write more. That's the best motivation any writer could have, is somebody saying, I want more, I really enjoyed it, or whatever. That's what else could you ask for?
If you ever need a motivation ego boost, I will happily provide it for you. Again, I'm
going to remember that when I'm having a bad day or I get a bad review, I'm like, Angela, please.
I'm always happy to post your photos because, again, this is me being me as a reader and getting to speak with you. You are so lovely as a person too. So you're not just a talented writer, but you're someone I want to support as a person. That's all the more reason for me to post about your books, because I want people to support not just your books, but you as a person.
Thank you. I couldn't ask for anything more. I really couldn't ask for anything more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching, and a huge thank you to the fabulous Colleen Cambridge Gleason, and I'm sure there's another 5 pen names coming in the future. So
I'm kind of condensing them all under Gleason. So anyway, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.